Hello and welcome. You're very welcome to this afternoon's debate where we're going to be discussing about how to empower consumers in the green transition, specifically the potential of digital solutions for waste collection and product labelling. It's been almost 2.5 years since the European Commission announced its Circular Economy Action Plan, and we've seen certain measures already taken. But of course, the main aims are to look at the entire life cycle of products, to promote the circular economy, reduce waste, encourage sustainable consumption, and also to reduce hazardous chemicals as well, so that they do not have the negative impact on citizens or on the environment. So we're looking at ways that this can be done, and the EU is trying to simplify and streamline the process, particularly through the use of innovative labelling requirements for certain categories and the use of digital labelling. So we're going to look at all of that today. I'm delighted to have joining us a great lineup of speakers who are all very expert and knowledgeable. Let me introduce you to Malte Galle, MEP and member of the Environment Committee in the European Parliament, so terribly relevant to you. Anna Larsson is Director for Central and Eastern Europe at the Reloop platform. Stefan Sipka is Policy Analyst at EPC. Nico Tesson is the European Association of Drum Manufacturers representative. And last but not least, the President of CONAI, Luca Ruini. So thank you all for being here. Malte, let me start with you. Give us your opening thoughts, set out what's your feeling on this issue. Where are we at now, almost 2.5 years down the line from the announcements, and what do we see happening next? What are the concerns in the Environment Committee in the Parliament?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Of course, the whole Circular Economy Action Plan is part of the European Green Deal, which first of all is a huge success of European civil society, who went on the streets in 2019 and clearly demanded this political change. What we are working on at the moment in the Circular Economy Action Plan, in the packages, in the certain files, is really breaking. I think we implement measures of, for example, recycled content, that we really push for a circular economy, that new products have to consist of reuse of recycled materials, and the digital product passport, of course, is a really important tool to create transparency, to push for a really good working second-hand market, and also to give all the informations to recyclers. So yeah, we are at the moment in this process of designing all these ideas, and I'm also really looking forward for the discussion to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malte. Anna, let me turn to you. I know you're a specialist in sustainable resource management and working with international undertakings targeting circularity. So tell me a little bit about how you view the current proposals, what needs to be done, where are there gaps? Give me a sort of opening statement overview on this topic.
Thank you for the invitation. Well, I represent Reloop platform. The vision of our organization is world without waste pollution, and we would like to achieve that through the implementation of circular economy. At Reloop, we welcome all progress in innovations with regards to the achievement of the goals of circular economy, and one of that is certain marking of products and packaging. But we would also like to encourage everyone or the market actors for careful evaluation of the solutions from the perspective of their value creating to the achievement of a circular product and circular packaging. Indeed, the clear information for the citizens, for the customers, is extremely important. However, this is only one of the system elements. We have to look from the perspective of all the phases of the life cycle of the product and packaging. We have to have solutions at the level of the eco-design, production, also with regards to the source separation, but also preparation for the recycling, preparation for the reuse, and final recycling and reuse models. And in terms of the digital passport and marking of the packaging, I would like to say that it would be very good to see some very simple, important measure. However, it should not be too much of information, and the information should not go into the local conditions related to the collection of waste, because those conditions in every country and even in regions are different. So we can speak about, for example, glass packaging. In Sweden, we separate glass by colors because this is the precondition for the recycling facilities and the process applied there. Whereas in Norway, the glass packaging is collected together with the metal packaging, because essentially and in practice, there is one umbrella organization, one entity that takes care of those two streams of the packaging. So as the information of the character of the package is really essential, and as a Swedish citizen, I really appreciate for many years, we as consumers have the information on the packages, most of them, like this one after pasta, that the certain packaging belongs to a certain stream. Like in terms of this packaging, it is we are informed that this package should be sorted as plastic packaging, and then later on it does not close the opportunities for different solutions used by municipalities and regions and recyclers, of course.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for the handy prop there as well, so we all get a sense. Stefan, you're analysing the policy on this. Tell us a bit more about where you see things.
Thank you, Jennifer. So just shortly to introduce myself. So my name is Stefan Schipka. I'm working as a policy analyst at the European Policy Center, which is an independent Brussels-based think tank. We cover a wide range of topics, including also sustainability, circular economy, which is the focus of my work. And in the last half a decade, let's say, we've been looking into the twin transition topics in particular, and especially the policy framework for the way forward, how to link green and digital transitions. And I would say that there are, based on our previous work and findings and discussions we held, digital solutions can definitely serve as an enabler for the green transition, for circular economy, for more sustainable waste management. Digital product passports in particular can enable better sharing of information across value chains between different actors, producers, consumers, waste operators, law enforcement agencies, and so forth. There are limitations, of course, to their applicability, and also a list of challenges to be addressed, and that's why we need EU policies and investments to overcome these barriers and to scale up certain digital solutions that already are being used to some extent, but also to develop digital solutions such as digital product passports and to introduce them more widely into our economy and society. So we need regulatory, better regulation, we need investments, we need also soft law, the EU as a convening power, to so that we can actually move forward with this agenda, and happy to elaborate further on this.
Thank you very much. Nico, let me turn to you. How much of what you've heard from the fellow panelists so far is chiming with you? Tell us where you sit within this panel.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nico Tessin from CEFA. We represent the European steel drum manufacturers. And just to give you a small idea what a steel drum is, I brought a small picture here with me. I hope you can see it. The real steel drum is, of course, much larger. This is not something that you see in the supermarket shelf. It's around 200-liter volume, and the weight is about 16 to 18 kilograms typically. It's an industrial packaging and made from steel, of course, as the name says. And this industrial packaging is handled by professionals through the entire life cycle. Our customers are mostly from the chemical industry. And of course, our members cooperate intensely with the customers. And also digital solutions are under discussion or even in practice in some cases. And we as an association, we have been confronted with these issues, especially in context of the material labeling, the so-called etiquetatura ambientale in which is regulated by a new Italian decree. And in this context, we also came into contact with CONAI just recently, and they produced a very helpful guideline, and in which it's among many other things, it is stated that material labeling for industrial packaging can be done either by shipping documents or via digital channels, and this is something that we appreciate very much. It makes especially sense because our members and even more our customers, they operate on the multinational and multilingual basis. And in another case where we already were confronted with digital solutions was the issue of traceability. And our members and we as an association work together with the chemical industry, especially in Germany. That's so far my statement on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico. Luca, you're speaking last as an opening round panelist, but I'm sure there is still something to add from your perspective.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for all. But it's quite interesting because we have, in any case, remember that the packaging labeling, it is something that gives you an help in order to do something. In this case, it is to make a correct, separate collection of waste, in this case of packaging. So whatever we use, in particular the digital solution, that for sure will be the future, because we are in a digital era, we are a necessity, but we have to remember that these are tools, something that you need to do the right things in the right moment. So due to the fact that it's quite complex, we as CONAI, the packaging waste consortium in Italy, manage all the kind of material of packaging and give an help to the also company to how to be designed the correct sustainable packaging, easy to recycle, and on the other hand, give an help to the municipality in order to collect correctly. And we are different in the different region of Italy. There are different approach, a way to make the collection. Sometimes because it is different. If one issue it is if we are inside the center of the town, an old town, it's completely different. If we are in the countryside, so the collection it is and have to be different, because in such a way we can be more effective and less costly for the citizens. But in order to give an help to the consumer to do the right things, the digital solution for the packaging labeling for sure will be the future. This is because it can help the consumer in order to do the right act in function of which area they are and which kind of collection. On the other hand, they give an help to the companies, because we are more a European company, so we produce in Italy and then we sell in Belgium or vice versa. And the issue it is that in order to give help, in order to give the right information, we need for the language and also for giving help in to doing the right collection, separate collection act. We need to have this kind of digital solution that give an help to the consumer to do the right thing.
Well, and thank you very much. Indeed, the title today is about empowering the consumer, so helping the consumer to do the right thing is absolutely what we're talking about. I want to remind our audience following along that you can, of course, share your thoughts on social media, use the hashtag #EADebates, but also send in your questions. You can type them in for our panelists. Please try and indicate if it's to the whole panel or to one individual panelist. So do get your questions in and we'll try to take them over the next hour or so. Malta, let me come back to you. Some issues have been highlighted there by the other panelists, specifically difference between regions, difference between locations. What do you think are the specific particularities that we really need to drill down into to end up with something seamless? And does it have to be seamless across the EU, or is it good enough that we set a benchmark?
Well, are you talking about the digital product passport specifically?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think first of all, there lies a huge, there lie so big opportunities within this passport that we do not even know about right now. I'm a huge fan of course, of harmonizing as much as possible, because I think this is what is Europe about, to just reduce the barriers, to really get towards a harmonized market. And if we look at the digital product passport specifically, I think it's really important that it keeps a certain characteristic, and this is that it will stay open. And open access, so that it's not just a thing for companies or for one big supplier, but really a tool for the people. That, for example, if I think of a bicycle, let's say, that people have the opportunity to like register the changes that they did on their bicycle, that they can show, hey, see here, I put on a new chain, and they link the digital product passport of the chain with the digital product passport of the bicycle, so that they really can make that they can really prove like the changes they did to their products. And I think this kind of openness, so a writing option for everybody, and this is a really essential thing I would like to see in this passport. And in general, what I also really like is the idea of deposit return schemes. And I think the digital product passport as well is one tool that can really facilitate this all over Europe. I mean, like it was mentioned before, there are different types of how to collect bottles in this case. And I think if we move towards this world where we have a digital product passport for every product, then we can also make sure that every product will get back to the waste stream where it belongs. And yeah, to start to really harmonizing all the areas that get in touch with our products.
Thank you. Let me actually come back, Luca, to you. We've heard there Malta suggesting that the digital passport offers actually a range of potential sort of services or bonuses, if you like, that are maybe not already foreseen. Do you agree? Do you see some future use or changes or developments of the digital passport as it is?
No, for sure, the digital passport will be quite interesting. There's still, in this moment in Italy, they're starting with the wine sector. They're starting to use this kind of digital passport in order to give an help to the consumer around the world, because we have a lot of we export a lot all around the world our wine, like France, for example. So in order to have the right information about the product, in this case, they are working quite a lot in order to have something digital that can help to have the right information, the legal one, but not only the legal one, also the other with the big digital passport. It was quite interesting when we started to have a guideline for the company in order to say in Italy, because we have a mandatory to have some labeling on the packaging. Then what we have started to do, it is to give an help to the company to write in the correct way the information, starting from the European recommendation and other things that are important and from the technical point of view. And what the company also starting to a public debate in order to collect all the information. Then the second request was, please tell me and give me another guideline in order to design the voluntary labeling, because during the fact that we have to change the pack, then we want to change the pack with the mandatory labeling, but also what we want also to make and to talk about that. And the third guideline that we are starting we published and that are in the public consultation in this moment was strictly related to the digital solution for packaging. And this is exactly because there's a quite big request from company from one end in order to be, as he said before, transparent and open access to all the consumer to the information that they need for the product, if you're talking about the passport, digital passport of the product, or the packaging, in order to understand what kind of material, but in particular, how to do the right separate collection of the waste for the consumer. Because I have to say, as I said before, it is important. Everything that we do, it is have to be done in order to give an help to do to the consumer, the citizen, to do the right thing in the local context. I add one thing about the local context, because it is not possible to do the same collection way of collection in all around the European country, because every country have their specificity. One issue where we have some countries that are island, for example, other are mountains, the other are like Italy, we have most of them. And so in order to have an effective collection, they have different way of collect, and also different way of approaching that. For example, Italy, it is historically with few raw materials, so we have developed a quite important recycling industry of that. So, and we are still one of the first in Europe about that. So in order to maintain to manage in the right way materials, because I have to say the waste inside our cities are new resources that can have a second life on that, and the way to manage correctly in order to increase the recycle of that, it is one of the things that is quite important. For example, for Italy, where we do not have quite a lot of raw material, and digitalization of the packaging and information of digital can help consumer and the citizen to do the right thing with their act of separate the collection in the right bin.
Well, Anna, I want to come back to you. I know we're a very timely event today, because it was less than a week ago that the Commission published its revision of the packaging and packaging waste regulation. I wonder, have you had a time to make an assessment of how that looks? What are your thoughts and your initial reactions?
It was like a Santa Claus gift. I think it's a very important document for European Union. Not only, it is actually very important on the global level, giving the directions. We welcome very much, first of all, the 15% target. Modest, but still a target for waste packaging minimization, and also very important policy instrument that is related to the recycled content. We need to create the demand on the market for the post-consumer waste fractions. So they become the substrate for the recycling industries, for the production facilities, and remain in the loop. So all in all, the document is extremely positive, and we are very happy to have received this information, and with regards to the guidelines and directions that the European Union is taking. We have to remember that the European Union is actually now one of the most important environmental institution in the world, as it is said, and all the mechanism, policy instruments presented there, I think, will secure circular economy. On top of the recycled content, also what's important is reuse targets, and very important requirement with regards to the recyclability of the packaging. And if we come back to the digital marking and marking of the packaging, we have now more than 170 kilograms per capita per year in European Union. Again, it's of course very valuable for the consumers in all European countries, not only as we have it in some of them, information with regards to the type of the sorting that should be applied, and where the consumer should leave the package. in terms of the source separation. But we also have to take into consideration that this is not everything, and it should be looked upon from the perspective of other measures. As I mentioned, eco design and production processes and recycled content, extremely important. But I would like to also refer to the huge challenge that we have in Europe, and which is related to the packaging waste made of plastic. So even though, as I mentioned earlier, in Sweden, we have had the information as consumers with regards to how we should source separate plastic packaging, based on the data summarizing 2020, it was revealed that only barely a little bit over 40% was collected. So still 60% of the plastic packaging is in the residual waste fraction. And based on the new methodologies, Sweden reported already for 2020, only 15% was material recycled. So even though there has been this information, and I believe Scandinavian countries can serve as guideline for simplicity, still we have to remember about the context and also the framework and the solutions. And just to add the extended producer responsibility, very important element, adding the financing, to the collection systems, especially if it is the responsibility of the municipalities.
Well, thank you, Anna. A mixed bag there of a response, I think. But as you say, perhaps Scandinavian countries are providing some leadership there. But I see also we have online some of our people reacting to what Lucas said. Carol Bujardot is saying that the U-Label platform for wine and spirits products are offering digital solution on food information and will be implemented in the Italian legislation as of January 2023. So thank you to Italian authorities as well for showing the way. Let me come back to you, Stefan, and get your assessment as well of the revision of the packaging and packaging waste regulation in general, not just the digital passports. I know I'm asking you this after only 6 days, but I know you probably have had a chance to skim it anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely, it is great that the Commission has come up with this proposal, and yeah, I mean, because it's a very important step towards addressing still the plastics challenge and the challenge with our packaging more generally. And yeah, so the new rules on design, on the content, on recycled content of packaging and the plastics in particular, also new reuse and recycling targets. We know that there was a bit of back and forward in terms of defining, for example, the exact targets, the time frame for reuse and recycle of the packaging waste. But yeah, all in all, it's still a big progress. I mean, when it comes to my understanding, at least, the digital solutions such as digital product passports, they will be addressed more as part of the other proposal, which is the eco-design for sustainable products regulation, also the batteries regulation, and they will target products themselves. And of course, depending on how this legislative framework will develop, it may be practical to apply digital product passports labels to packaging, but with regard to the products contained therein, not the packaging themselves. But yeah, indeed, when it comes to the packaging, it is indeed, there are also new developments, such as developments of chemical recycling, for example, that can maybe address some previous challenges. But I think it's before we go into that, it's important that we first do as much as we can to prevent waste generation, to avoid unnecessary amount of packaging when we can go with less. And that actually we design packaging to be reusable, to be recyclable, and also to deploy and improve our waste management infrastructure, waste collection infrastructure across Europe. And another important point is concerns waste shipments and movement of waste within the Union. We need to create a single market for waste. That will actually also create us help us create the economy of scale. We need to standardize waste, also collection, recycling, so that the secondary materials would then be improved in their quality and become more competitive compared to virgin materials, for example. Notwithstanding that we need to, of course, prioritize reuse, repairs, especially when it comes to main products. So this is there. The waste, the packaging directive is also, we need to look at it within the wider context of the waste and product related legislation and the circular economy as such, so that we can actually really ensure that we achieve the transition to a more circular economy.
Nico, let me bring you in there, because we've talked a lot, we're talking about consumers, but we're also talking about producers and packaging producers. There are other stakeholders involved in this chain as well, sort of people along the supply chain. What's your take on where the focus needs to be to deliver on a circular economy?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Regarding the recyclability, I think steel drum is a perfect solution. The drum consists more or less 100% of steel. Of course, there's some coating on it, and the closure might be made of plastic in some cases, but the main parts of the steel drum are 100% recyclable, and they are recycled. Steel is the most recycled material in the world, so that is not a problem at all for our business, I guess. And also, as I said, these drums are handled by professionals along the supply chain, and I don't think there are many drums that get lost and end up as landfill, even if they are exported, because some of the filled products, the filled drums, are exported outside of Europe, certainly. Another thing that is important for us, of course, we are also monitoring and studying the new draft of the packaging and packaging waste regulation, and see with great interest that the topic of reuse is very important there, and also drums are mentioned there. Strangely, in context of transport packaging, because we don't see our drums as transport packaging, we see them as primary packaging. But there are some open questions that are remaining, and we have to clear this with the other stakeholders, because our steel drums, they can be reconditioned. They are reconditioned from the, more or less, I think we produce around 30 million steel drums in Europe, and about 10 million steel drums are reconditioned each year. And of course, it is important to see what our customers, the fillers and their customers, the emptiers of the drums, what do they say? Do they accept a reconditioned drum? I could imagine that in some cases there will be problems, but I guess we have to look at this more in detail and discuss along the supply chain what is possible, because of course our industry is also in favor of a circular economy.
Well, just as a follow-up, I'm interested, Nico, because Stefan mentioned what I think he said was a single market for waste. Is the steel drum industry involved in helping transport waste as well?
I could imagine that these open head drums in some cases are also used for waste, but this is something which we would not be so familiar with, because they are maybe for lithium batteries in some cases. It is possible, yeah. I wouldn't exclude it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take a question now from our audience online. Thank you very much. Martina Cironi has a question, in fact, just to Luca specifically, regarding is it compulsory to label returnable packaging in business to business, is their question. If a client receives my packaging and then returns it to my company, should it be labeled from January 2023? It's quite a specific question, but Luca, if you can tackle it for Martina, that would be helpful.
Yeah, in the guideline that we draft, what we said, it is that you have to give the right information, but it is not necessary, particularly to business to business to put on the pack this kind of information, but you need also, you can do it using on the document that is used to transport the material. So the issue it is to be sure that the information it is given to the business to business, but the way you do it, it is not necessary to be done directly on the pack. Also because there are some case there are some problem to do that. I can say. But Jennifer, if I can add something about some comments about the proposal of the Commission on the packaging waste revision. But one thing that surprised us, and Italy is starting to have a quite strong reaction about that. It is that due to the fact that when we talk about sustainability, I make a more general, but then arrive. When we talk about sustainability means to be able to be adapted to the local context. So, due to the fact that different countries have different approach, we see Sweden from one end. For example, in Italy, we are able to make separation from different color of the glass. Just to make an example, it's not a problem. We don't have separate collection, but we are able to separate inside the second phase once collected. So the real issue it is in order to be sure that in the different context of different country, and we make a quite interesting event with our expert, is our organization of the Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. What came out it is that every country have completely different organization. I make two example. Italy, it's high rate, more than 73% of recycle, and we work with the municipality, and then there's responsibility of the collection. If you go in Belgium, same rate, so high, there's only one bag, and then there's they make an industrial separation in order to have the material in order to be collected. In any case, results are the same, but they are completely different. Belgium, it is big cities, little area. Italy, it is long mountains, seaside, etc. So the real request that we have it is due to the fact that there are some very good examples that are working quite well in some condition, and there are different countries are completely different for story and for investment, and also for geography. It is important to be respected in order to, in particular, if the country are able to reach 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years before the target given to the European Commission. Not is the same for other country, for example. So I think that this kind of debate to leave the flexibility in order to reach the goals, because the goals, I fully agree that it is important to have high rates in order to rightly manage our waste, because now it is in particular a resource more than in the past, and due to the fact that in this economic situation and everything is changed, and also the international supply chain are completely changed, this kind of material became more and more quite important.
Well, indeed, look, it requires almost a different mindset as well to stop thinking of waste as waste and think of it as a resource, but something that I think is absolutely clear to the next generation. I have a couple of questions, Anna, coming in from our audience specifically for you. Vinciane Petillo is saying, if sorting instructions on pack do not really help to improve collection, what else or what can be done to reach consumers? And Clarissa is also saying that the new proposals, revisions, require deposit return for beverage packaging if the very high targets are not met. Perhaps you could explain how deposits incentivize consumers, or are incentive schemes the same thing? What sort of performance do we see? Really coming back to our core question today about empowering consumers and incentivizing consumers.
Yes, indeed. The clear information about how to sort the package at the level of the household is an important guideline for the consumer. But we can clearly see that this is both proactive consumers that will look at this information and apply the instruction in their sorting. Still, we know some packaging, especially plastic, and this is not only the problem of Scandinavian countries, everywhere in Europe and in the world, plastic packaging is a huge challenge. Especially also flexible plastics, and I can give example of my husband. He can source separate 3D objects without any problem, but as it comes to the plastic packaging after bread, it's a little bit of the challenge, and I used to pick it up from the residual waste. So it is very important to look at the context and also look at other solutions and frameworks that are value creating for circularity of the packaging, and this deposit systems are mentioned. It is a very important collection method for beverage containers. We know that beverage containers are very much littered in the nature, and actually the background of the deposit systems for single-use beverage containers is actually an anti-litter measure. 1984 system was established as obligatory collection methodology in Sweden. Now with Malta included, there are 13 European countries with this solution. And because of the fact that this is a packaging type that is very much littered in the nature, a very special motivation in form of this financial deposit tool is needed for the consumers. So as we can see in many countries, we've implemented the deposit scheme for single-use beverage containers. We would not find many bottles and cans littered in the nature, and that's because the powerful mechanism of monetary incentive is applied. So the purchase of the product in deposit-bearing packaging, customer pays fee, which is fully returned when the customer returns the package to the selling point. So yet again, it's very important to look into the proven solutions for waste management, for the collection, and embed all of the solutions and framework for the circularity of all packaging in the European Union.
Thank you. Malta, let me come back to you again. You've heard a lot of speakers there with different perspectives. Is there anything that's standing out to you or particularly chiming before we come on to our questions from the audience?
Well, I think it's a good sign that everybody is looking forward to receive to work on this digital product passports. And yeah, as it was mentioned, also like the opportunity for deposit return schemes and to really leave the message on the product. I think this is a really good way to go forward. But of course, we also have to make sure and also keep in mind that most informations for consumers still have to be readable on the product itself. So we cannot shift to a system where we put all the information only in the digital product passport. I think this could create a loophole in information that we should try to avoid.
Well, thank you very much. We do have a question coming in from our audience as well that perhaps you could have a look at as well, asking how can digital solutions ensure that packaging or product is made from a certain percentage of recycled materials? And for waste-derived recycled plastic content, how could digital solutions enable traceability at the product or unit level? So a couple of quite specific questions. Malta, I'll let you tackle it and then to see if any of our other panelists want to chime in as well.
Well, I guess the solution for this, of course, lies at the producer level. So how they can basically then, approve how much of recycled content they put. But I think that's totally doable. That's in what should be possible for them. So yeah, of course, that's the kind of information that could be put to the digital product passports, which is also, of course, then again an interesting information for the recyclers, so that they know what they have to what they can expect if they put the product back into the loop.
Thank you very much. Stefan, the same question to you about what sort of possibilities lie with these digital solutions. Can they ensure that a product is made from percentage recycled materials or waste-derived plastic content? We talked about transparency. I mean, there's only so much surely a digital solution can do.
It can definitely help in principle, because if you set it right, I mean, digital product passports can enable access to this information. So whoever receives the product at some point, that person can scan, for example, the tag and access the background information about the product, including also the content and including also the share of recycled material in the product. So that is definitely, and it enables this kind of a very efficient, seamless information transfer about the product instead of using paper or checking or you doing some additional auditing to determine the content. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that it can solve all of it on its own. It's part of the solution. For example, you need to make sure that the initial information, the original information, is of high quality. So for that, you may need to do some initial auditing to ensure that actually product is made of recycled materials, or at least partially. But then, for example, once the information is credible, once it's inserted, then it's actually easier if it flows digitally to actually access it. It becomes less costly to prove that the product is actually indeed what the label says, or the digital product passport says, and so forth. So in that sense, there are great possibilities. Now, of course, one of the biggest challenges with product passports and also digital information sharing in general is this balance between sharing information and data protection. So producers may be concerned over the confidentiality, business sensitive information, IPR, and so forth. So then that is still a bit of a challenge when you look at different legislative initiatives, how to introduce product passports or just share information digitally. There are also new other solutions such as blockchain that can, for example, help with this, or you can combine blockchain and digital product passports. So there are ways, but these are still to be scaled up. Also, just to come back shortly on what Luca was talking about, indeed, like when certain product or waste is transferred from one actor to another, it needs to be accompanied by certain document or information so that it can be tracked, right? But this is exactly what digital product passport can help, because especially in say more dynamical form, where different actors can insert information by digital product passport, it can actually it can improve the information sharing. That being said, of course, the challenge is with respect to the quality of the information, and it's also something that needs to be addressed when we develop digital product passports, not just in terms of information added by producers in the design phase and production phase, but also information that can be added downstream.
Well, Luca, I want you to build on that, because we have yet another question coming in from our audience member, again about the information on digital passports, asking how could it help recyclers receiving shredded sorted waste? I mean, there's a lot of challenges in this chain.
But the information, the digital information can be used, for example, there's a lot in Italy in particular, quite a lot of web app that again can give you make the scan of the product, and then he said they are geo-localized and can give you a correct indication which way you can make the correct sorting bin in order the packaging that you have in hand. As packaging waste national organization, we are completing at the end of this year the map of the way in the different cities, the different way of collection will be done, and this will give a great help in order to use this kind of digital information in order to easy help the citizen to do the right activity in order to throw it in the right bin. But I have to underline two things. One, it is remember that the digital solution are like a car. You have to decide what you put on the car. So the issue it is one issue it is how you move it, the information, and the other it is which kind of information, the quality of information you put in. We have in any case to separate and managing in a different way. The second, when we talk about separate collection waste, we talk about in which way we explain and convince the citizen to do the right act in order to make the right sorting. And also from this, it's thinking about that there's one unique solution that it is easy and full going the right way, like the deposit return scheme. If I can make some comparison on the different scheme. For example, there are in Italy, without no deposit return scheme, the cans in aluminium are now more than 90% collected. And if you look in other country, if you look to the deposit return scheme, the numbers are lower than this kind. And we was quite surprised to in the proposal of the commission to do not find no target of interception for the deposit return scheme, when we have some studies that we have done that there's a very different percentage from country to country. It moves from 83% to 94%. So it depends in which way you are doing that. And in some kinds, as I said before, in the local context would be the right solution. In particular, in the big country, quite complex, where never introduce it and are still obtaining now quite high rate of recycling of the packaging that it is in the market.
Thank you very much, Luca. Let me come back, Nico. It's not specifically on drum, but there's a couple of issues that I see coming up from our questions, specifically challenges like multi-language labeling, packaging, or information providing. Some saying that, in fact, there are national sorting initiatives and labeling initiatives, for example, Italy and France, that are entering into force from the 1st of January. But then some guidelines are not available in English. We see just a difference and a little bit of a fragmentation. Carol from Spirits Europe is also pointing out that there's a bit of fragmentation. What's your view on this? Do you see any potential solutions? What's the advice that you would give for those operating particularly across border or across Europe?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I guess especially in our industry and also in our customers, multinational and transborder transports are more the rule than the exception. And yeah, I could imagine that often everything is handled in English, but of course that is not always possible. And that means we have the necessity to have the information in different languages. And I'm quite sure that digital solutions or solutions on the shipping documents are here the right way forward. Of course, on a drum, on a steel drum and a big steel drum, you can put on also a big label, which would have then to be done by our customers, of course, not by ourselves. And on a big label, you can write more information in more languages, but for smaller packaging, that is, of course, not possible. And also, especially for the elder people among us, you still have to be able to read this. So also here, a digital solution could be the right way, I guess.
Well, thank you, Nico. Indeed, some problems are not everyone's problems. Big drums get big labels. That's fantastic. Really good to point out. Malta, let me come back to you. aside from Nico's very practical pointing out there that we need to be able to read things and digital solutions could help there, how do we deal with some of the other fragmentation issues regarding, for example, multi-language packaging?
Well, I think, of course, goods are sold mostly in national markets and are often also, like dealt with within companies that are active in their specific countries. But I think that the solution should, of course, be that there is always an English version with regard to our common goal of a more harmonized market, and also of more more European understanding. So so that we provide to creating a European identity, and that basically every child will always have in mind, okay, it's not only my local language but also our common language. So I think this is for the labeling, but of course, I mean, like with the digital product passport, this is just easy to do. You can put any languages. If I may, I would just make another comment on the single market for waste, what was mentioned by Stefan, because this is, I think, a really important thing to think about how to make it best, because I think it's really important to keep in mind to always make it the most ecological solution possible, because what we risk if we really push for a single market for waste is basically that we lower our standards, because in some countries we have really high standards. So the aim must be to get everybody else to the very high standards, and then we can harmonize the markets, and not, for example, that we ship waste from Finland to Portugal just because it's cheaper there, but that we make it more easily for local waste processing, especially in the cross-border regions. I think this should be the aim of a single market for waste.
Anna, I'd very much like to get your perspectives on this as well. Do you agree or disagree, or somewhat disagree?
I think that obviously the digital marking gives opportunities, especially in the context of the challenge with the languages. I have to say that even though in Sweden we have had the description with regards to the sorting instructions, it was not so often applied on the imported products, on the packaging for the imported products. So basically it will solve some challenges, but we should maybe go further and think about the requirement for all the packaging labeling to include the information about the type of material that the package is made of. So as we have now, as the example of the description in Swedish language or Scandinavian languages, this package should be sorted as plastic, glass, metal, and so on. But this is one sentence, and it should be added to the information about the packaging. And I showed you many times, and I will do it one more time, this packaging after pasta locally produced in Sweden. The information about the sorting instruction is essential part of the product and package information. So regardless if it is the code, the QR code, or just a sentence, it will be necessary for the consumers to and actually the consumer right to have this information provided. And I would like to also build on what Mr. Sipka said earlier. I have not been thinking about that, but I really like the opportunity that the packaging description will give for us consumers, that already not only at the post-consumer phase when we need to decide how to sort the certain package, we will also have opportunity as consumers before the purchase to do our consumer choices, because I would obviously very much like to choose the packaging that has high recycled content rather than the package that only has or will have in future just a minimum recycled content in the material. So that was a very interesting point, and I really like that opportunity.
Well, I think Malta and Anna, I'll put this to both of you. We see different priorities within consumers, and indeed, Anna, we want to see a highly recycled product or packaging, but there may be price point concerns for other consumers. How do we really get the incentive there, and where does that lever need to be? Does it need to be at the manufacturing or packaging level, or is it enough to rely on consumers to make the right choices if given the right information? Transparency alone doesn't always solve everything. Malta, could I get your reaction to that?
Well, I think what is really crucial with this question is, first of all, to look at the concept of eco-design. So basically that we put up best performing categories, and that we kick out the least performing companies who cannot comply with that. So this kept in mind this eco-design idea that we implement on so many other products categories through the eco-design for sustainable products regulation. This is of course like the main structure, but then for the rest, for everything that is like within let's say the from us decided legal area, there people should be able to choose, of course. But yeah, to go for this price argument, I think it's really important to keep in mind that basically more and more virgin material use. I think virgin material use, if we think about circular economy, it's only as cheap because we are not able to internalize all the so far externalized costs. So by coming up with this political decision of using recycled content, we in the end, of course, end up with the far cheaper solution, because we protect our planet, and this is just the most valuable thing we all can do.
Thank you. Anna, I'd be interested in your response on that one as well.
I fully agree with Mr. Gallet, and I would like to also answer your question. Well, communication with consumers is important, but it's not everything, and it will not do the job in 100%. Eco-design is a very important precondition for circularity. Information for consumers, how to sort, yes, part of that, but we have to also think about the comprehensive framework and solution. And let me give you an example of Sweden. As 2020 was reported, and we woke up looking at the data, 15% plastic packaging material recycled. Huge shock for the market actors, for the government, for those interested consumers. And then what does the government do? Well, yes, there needs to be a solution implemented. So it's pretty interesting that the cradle of extended producer responsibility, as Sweden can be called, decided upon very serious steps. And now the organizational responsibility of the producers with regards to the collection of the packaging waste will be terminated from 1st of January 2024. It will be municipalities' responsibility to collect all the waste fractions, residual food and packaging, and producers, manufacturers, importers will have to pay for the collection of packaging fractions. We know today that, as per example of Sweden, 60% of plastic packaging is anyway left in the residual waste fraction and has to be sorted at the municipal facilities. So it's very also important to underline the efficient solutions in terms of the collection, in terms of the preparation for the recycling, and also the framework included the extended producer responsibility and co-financing from producers, which is in a way guideline of the European Union and embedded in the Waste Framework Directive in Article 8A.
Stefan, let us, as we're just coming to our final, but I want to touch on one area that we haven't really mentioned, which is the possibility for repair and recycle of goods and tracking of specifically harmful substances. How do you see current proposals on that, and is transparency, again, the same question, is transparency the absolute golden bullet?
Well, I would say that I mean, transparency is definitely very important because information is key in all of these debates and discussions. But of course, we need to do something more concretely, building on the information available. I mean, information is important to design more circular products that for consumers to handle them in a better way and more sustainable way. We need it for repairers to know, for example, if a certain device contains hazardous chemicals or not, and for waste operators to actually be able to recycle end-of-life products more efficiently, and so we can recover secondary materials. So for all of that, we need information, and digital tools can enable better sharing of information. Now, of course, what the EU can do, what the policymakers can do, they can indeed design out certain say features of a product, so that including also if it's not necessary for a product to contain certain hazardous materials, that we don't necessarily need it. And of course, that needs time, and it needs to be assessed on a case-by-case basis to introduce this sort of rules. And we will see, of course, what the new eco-design regulation will, how will it develop, and delegated acts need to be adopted and so forth. But yeah, indeed, some of these solutions can be provided by simply mandatory requirements for product content. Then, of course, sharing of information, digital product passports can help with that. And also to touch upon the end-of-life management, also going back to the extended producer responsibility. Now there are developments introducing eco-modulation, for example, where fees that producers need to pay will depend also on the on the products themselves, on whether they are more recyclable, less recyclable, repairable, and so forth. And in a way that will affect the fee that they need to pay for the management, end-of-life management of the products that they placed on the market. So that's also an interesting way to incentivize also better product design, to be products to be more durable, more recyclable, but also if product design is not affected, producers may just shift the price to consumers. Less recyclable, repairable producers will be more expensive, consumers will buy other products. On plastics, just to say also, there is a plastic levy now at the EU level for non-recycled products, which again means that that's another incentive to actually, that can be another signal for consumers to buy products with more recyclable packaging. It's easier said than done, of course. The devil is in the details, and a lot of these policies are still to be ironed out, to be fully implemented. But there are definitely opportunities. And on the repairs, again, more can be done also when it comes to improving relations between, let's say, independent repairers and manufacturers, so that information can flow between the two. And again, it comes back to this question on what information you can use, to what extent, for what purpose. And this is again something where the EU can help, and then we would need to look at more closely at the digital agenda, the work on the Data Act, on the digital data spaces, and so forth, and the eco-design regulation, which is indeed an extremely important initiative at this point. But yeah,
Absolutely.
just to say, indeed, the EU policies have been focused for recycling for a very long time, and indeed the time is to actually try to shift towards, let's say, other aspects of to actually prevent waste and to reuse and repair products before they even become waste or being destined for recycling.
Thank you very much. A lot of interconnected elements and policies there. Luca, I think you wanted to chime in as well. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, I wanted to add something about transparency, because when you talk about transparency for the consumer, it is one issue. But another issue it is due to the fact that we make a study in order to understand how the APR system in Europe are and how much transparency there in order to have some also information about the cost and how they spend the money they collect. One thing that surprised quite a lot it is that more than half of the different APR system in Europe do not have public information available. It is not possible to understand how they spend their money, and so the transparency is quite low. And I think that, what surprised me, it is nothing about this kind of topic was inside the proposal of the Commission, because how is possible, in order to design, to understand how there's all this interconnection, this complexity, if there's not a request of transparency. And this is not a transparency of fee. This is another thing, because the fee is coming from how much you cost. We make an example to understand how the different fee paid in Europe. It is quite surprising me, because there was it is from 1 to 10 times comparing to the different country, and it is not linked to the result that they obtained. On the opposite, the one that have a lower result, they cost 10 times, and in particular in this period where the secondary material have a quite big value, there's also some country where there was the increase of request of fee, even if there was then double or 3 times the value of the secondary material put on that. And from my point of view, this it is not acceptable, because we need to know, even if there's an environmental product responsibility organization, they have to explain, because this kind of money, it is in any case asked to the company in order to pay in which way will be at the end and it is not a topic of market, it is a topic of transparency, because otherwise there are countries where the money it is used in order to increase the system for the municipality. In other, there are some systems that they use the money that they earn more in the pocket of some private organization. And this, from my point of view, it is something that it is, if you wanted to increase it, to work in the right way, transparency on the cost and what they put, the money must be one of the topic to be put. And nothing it is still now. We hope that in some of the recommendation we put on cost, because otherwise it will happen that there was a lot of differences. Some APR system will say, no, I don't say nothing about that. This is something that, like in Germany, it is quite interesting about that. No information, you do not understand where to spend money, and this is, from my point of view, it is still not still acceptable on that. We need to understand, because otherwise, how is possible to make some European proposal and say that the German or the Swedish one, it is the best one, if we do not know exactly how much does it cost and where we put. I think this is another key element about the transparency on that. Then it's possible to make some different decision, but on the base on that. And this is also the difficulty that the Commission had, because there's not a lot of study understanding how there's the difference between France, Sweden, etc., and do not make the comparison with that. I had only one other example just to understand how we are different. In Sweden, there's not a lot of paperboard coming from recycled material, because we have a lot of forest, well managed, sustainable managed. On the opposite, we go in Italy, there's it's quite few the amount used for the paper. It is normally coming from recycled collected paper, because we don't have the forestry, we don't use on that.
Thank you, Luca. Well, we're down. We just have 1 minute left. So I think I'll just very quickly ask each of you to say in just one word, a yes or no. Are you content that we are on the right track with the right timeline? Malta, are you believing that?
It's up to us to make the best decisions right now, huh?
Okay, thank you. Anna, yes or no, are we on the right track and timeline?
It's a lot of work ahead of us, but we have clear directions given by European Union, and it will be very exciting months ahead of us and years to fully implement circular economy.
Stefan, a final word from you.
I would say that the scene is set, but indeed we need to implement the policies that are currently being developed. And in terms of the timeline, we don't have a lot of time to address key threats, challenges such as global warming, biodiversity loss, resource depletion, and to actually make our economy more resilient given the current geopolitical uncertainty. So time is always of the essence when it comes to sustainability and circular economy.
Indeed, the clock is ticking. Nico, a final thought from you briefly?
Yeah, certainly on the right track, on the right timeline, I don't know. I don't think it's too late.
Good to know. And Luca, final thought from you.
Yes, for sure. With the framework, it is well done. I hope that will be considered the different context of the different country. Otherwise, the results, the good results that are still in some countries reached, can be lost.
Well, thank you all very much indeed. And thank you so much to our audience for all your questions and attention coming in over the last hour and 15 minutes. Thank you to Conai for sponsoring. We've been talking about how to empower consumers in the green transition. This is not a topic that's going to go away. We will be talking about it, I'm sure, for months and years to come. So please stay with us in Euractiv and keep an eye out for future debates on this and many other topics. And have a great day.